Sometimes I think coaches and players get so into the coach speak of it all, and they say something so often that they think there's a meaning, right? Better offensive execution is a good one. Because that could mean literally anything. Better offensive execution could mean scoring a bunch more points. You hope it leads to scoring a bunch more points. It could mean making better decisions. It could mean having better field awareness. It could mean so many things. And by the way, even some of those things I just said were kind of vague and like, tell me what you want to improve on.
Slightly.
Like having better field awareness. Time, are we talking down and distance? Are we talking, what the defense is doing? There's everything could be more specific. So what I'm going to try to do here on the drive is say the Panthers, we heard it from both Frank Reich, we heard it from Bryce Young, we heard it from just about everybody. They want better offensive execution in week 2 of the preseason. I don't believe that just means putting up more points. I actually think there's a very specific thing they're hoping for, and you're darn right it has to do with that offensive line. I actually think better offensive execution has a lot to do with the guy from Wake Forest, if he plays for the Giants this weekend. Dexter Lawrence.
Mm-hmm. Wake Forest High School, Wake Forest, North Carolina, not the school.
True. The town. By the way, I just moved to the area. We moved to Wake Forest, not the school. We moved to Wake Forest. There are quite a few people, like I have friends and family all across the country, that get very confused by that.
Yes.
I'm like, well, it used to be there. It was a long time ago. Pretty soon you're talking about Arnold Palmer, and you just spiral out of the explanation takes on an entire mind of its own. But that's neither here nor there. I hope the Giants do play Dexter Lawrence, though. I hope the Giants play Dexter Lawrence. I hope they play Leonard Williams. I hope they play Ashawn Robinson, Kayvon Thibodeau. I hope they play their entire vaunted defensive line, which is amongst the best in the NFL. Because, first of all, that's the only way the Panthers are going to know if they've gotten better week over week, right? If you're just beating up on end of the bench guys, that doesn't tell me you got better or you know what you're doing any better. You might just be able to physically overpower them. I want to get a fastball look from a defense, and I want the Panthers to be able to see what else is broken in their offense, right? I want a diagnostic, right?
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want like when you go to take your car into the shop and they say, well, run a diagnostic and we'll give you a call. I want the diagnostic. I don't know if everybody watched Hard Knocks. I've had it on in the background a few times, watched it a few times. Don't know if I've caught everything. But Quinnen Williams on the Jets during the week of joint practices, or the joint practice with the Panthers, was going around telling anybody that would listen that he got 10 sacks that practice. Or
he could have.
Who he was saying, like, yes, I guess because the quarterbacks were untouched. But he was saying, 10, 15, 12, 10, 12 sacks. He told Rodgers, he told coaches, he was mic'd up. He told everybody. Quinnen Williams is a pretty good interior defensive lineman. Guard is quickly becoming one of the concerns until Corbett gets back, at least, for the Panthers. Quinnen Williams, interior defensive line. Dexter Lawrence, right? Leonard Williams, who... Okay, you're going to have a concern tested.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see the offense, meaning the Panther offense, their better offensive execution. I don't want their game wrecked by the defensive line. That's goal. That's priority numero uno. And I say it for this. And I thought of this analogy earlier. Stick with me on it, right? An NFL offense is kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine.
Okay.
Everybody know what I had to make one in middle school for like physics class,
like
right?
The game Mousetrap.
Yeah, exactly. It's the thing where, right, you knock over the dominoes fall, one falls off the table and it pulls a string, and the string makes the bowling ball roll down a ramp, which goes onto a seesaw, and it flips, and the water splashes, and when the water splashes, it lands in a gutter, and then at the end, like, I don't know, a match lights or something, and it's like, ooh, cool. That's the Rube Goldberg. And when a defensive line is wrecking the game, the way that the Jets' defensive line was wrecking the game against the Panthers in preseason game 1, it's as if you build this whole big, long Rube Goldberg thing, right? This big, long contraption where a bunch of little things trigger other little things, and it's a cool thing to watch. It's as if you start the dominoes and like the third domino doesn't knock over the fourth, right? The distance was too much, and it's just, all right, and it's over. And you don't know if the seventh thing would have worked. You don't know if the bowling ball would have rolling down the ramp at the right speed. You don't know if the glass of water would have tipped over. You don't know if anything else is broken or working because you never got past the domino. So think of the Carolina Panthers offense in that way about preseason game 1. Were the wide receivers getting open? Well, some of the routes probably didn't even have time to get open because Bryce Young had to make the decision to get rid of the ball very earlier than he would have liked because the defensive line was getting beat. Or sorry, the defensive line was beating the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Right? Was Bryce Young finding the right deep balls, right? Because he had 4 completions for 21 yards. That's not very good, right? Depth of target. Well, we don't know because he had to accelerate everything. Was the running game working? Well, we don't know because they were able to stop the pass game with 4, so the linebackers were like, you just don't know. You have no idea if the rest would have won, right? Or worked. Just like you don't know if the rest of the Rube Goldberg would have worked if you never get by the dominoes that started. So looking at what is better offensive execution, if we find out that some of the wide receivers aren't getting separation on downfield routes, that's kind of a win. Right? Because, okay, now you know what you have to fix. Just like after game 1, the only thing you knew you really had to fix was, well, that offensive line better figure stuff out. Mm-hmm. So if you find, okay, the backup running backs, right? Because I won't expect to see Miles Sanders really in any preseason game. Chuba Hubbard, is he seeing the right hole and pressing the defense into the right spot, setting up his blocks, or is he bouncing everything? Well, there needs to be a hole opened up for us to know whether he is attacking the right part of the line on his path towards the line of scrimmage, right? Like, let's find out. And if it finds out, like, oh, Chuba Hubbard's bouncing everything this year, he needs to work on that. Okay, we figured it out. Couldn't have done that last week. So my major point here is I want the Giants to throw the fastball. I want the good defensive line out there. I don't want them resting starters. And I want to find out what other than offensive line the Patriots need to work on. That, to me, is better offensive execution. And
like you said, you can't get to step 10 if the Panthers can't get step 1 down or step 2.
Yes, and it's
none of the other steps matter.
Speaking, we kind of started this whole thing making fun of coach speak, right?
Yeah.
Every cliche does come with at least a grain of truth. And part of that is, right, it all starts up front.
Yeah.
Right? The trenches, it all starts in the trenches. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why that is a cliche, and it's because nothing else works if the guys up front aren't getting their job done. Better offensive execution means you find out what is not executing well other than the offensive line, because right now we don't know. We don't. I like what I saw from Bryce Young, but I'd like to get the opportunity to see more different situations for Bryce Young.